I became a monster hunter. People vanish in the Appalachian Mountains, and it's getting darker. I never should have opened that door. The air felt heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something sweeter, something rotting. My heart hammered in my chest, warning me against the chaos that lay on the other side. But curiosity had me tugging on that rusted handle, the metal cold against my fingertips, sending a shiver dancing down my spine. That it was just another day in my sleepy little town, far removed from the horrors I was about to uncover. A cup of coffee, the morning sun pouring through the kitchen window, the faintest hum of life outside. Everything was normal, until it wasn't. Word had spread like wildfire that people were vanishing. Each time, the Appalachian Mountains loomed larger in the background, a dark silhouette against the horizon, whispering secrets I wasn't ready to hear. As I strolled into the town, an unusual chill settled over the air, slicing through the warmth of the sun. Birds stopped singing mid-note. The wind carried an odd sound, a rustling that felt different. I paused, shivers skittered down my arms. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, morphing as if they had a life of their own. I gripped my jacket tighter around my shoulders, unease swirling in my gut. The cafe was buzzing with hushed voices. Someone mentioned a group that had gone hiking, their laughter echoing off the walls, only for it to quiet down abruptly as they failed to return. Whispers of what those mountains contained flitted through conversation, stories of figures lurking just beyond the tree line, eyes glowing in the dark. My heart sank at the thought, what if they weren't just stories? Deep down, I felt the knot tightening. What if they were real? The flickering of the fluorescent lights overhead rattled my nerves. I couldn't let this be just another rumor. My determination surged. I pushed my way through to the door and stepped outside, the sun now hidden behind a blanket of clouds, a foreboding omen that sent a shiver down my spine. Each step felt like I was wading deeper into that darkness, the white noise of the town fading behind me, replaced by the sinister hum of the trees whispering secrets I couldn't yet understand. Then it happened. A crack echoed from behind me, sharp and sudden. I whipped around. Nothing but the shifting shadows. A wave of dread crashed over me as the temperature dropped. The mountain loomed closer now, and for the first time, I noticed a figure standing at the tree line, indistinct but unnervingly still. My breath hitched in my throat. Was it watching me? I snapped my head back towards town, the comforting chatter now an echo of the past. A cold gust swept through, carrying a voice faint, chilling. "Help us," it called. Goosebumps spread across my skin. I staggered back, heart racing. Who had said that? Was it real? Or was the mountain demanding sacrifices? My mind raced, but my feet felt glued to the ground. I took a tentative step forward, my heart pounding like a drum. Just then, a rustle came from the bushes behind me, quick and jagged. I spun around, breathless. A shadow darted, disappearing into the darkness. My pulse raced as I felt eyes on me from the trees, as if the forest itself was alive. Panic clawed at my throat, and I stumbled backward, the air turning black around me. And then, just like that, the door slammed shut behind me, plunging me into the dark. I turned to find nothing but an empty space where it had stood, silence crashing down. I was trapped. The shadows closed in, and a dreadful feeling coiled around my insides like a snake. What had I awakened? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The darkness inched closer, wrapping around me like a shroud. I could feel it, a pulsing malevolence that throbbed with the rhythm of my own panicked heartbeat. My hands fumbled in the blackness, searching for the door that had vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Hello. My voice splintered into the suffocating silence, swallowed whole by the oppressive atmosphere. As I stood there, an unsettling shape began to materialize before me, vague outlines coalescing into something vaguely humanoid. I gasped, stumbling back, but there was nowhere to retreat. Every direction was engulfed in pitch black. The figure flickered in and out of focus, its features indistinct yet palpable, as though the darkness was not simply an absence of light, but a tangible entity. "Help us," the voice whispered again, clearer now. An imploring tone laced with despair, but it reverberated around me, echoing off unseen walls. I felt sick, my insides churning violently as I tried to make sense of the haunting plea. Where are you?" I croaked, uncertainty dripping from my words. Here, the phantom breath caressed my neck, cold as frost, and I spun around, skin prickling with fear. Nothing was there but the darkness, thick and tangible. Yet the air shifted, a breeze whispering secrets I couldn't decipher. In the distance, an otherworldly howl ripped through the suffocating stillness, a cacophony of anguish that clawed at my psyche. It was the sound of something lost, something trapped between realms. It seemed to resonate from the depths of the mountains, the anchor of sorrow that had beckoned me here. I felt myself being drawn toward it, a moth to a flame, helpless to resist the call. Seeking something anything, I lunged forward, stretching my hands into the void. And then, a pulse of warmth enveloped me, grounding me momentarily. It was the rough texture of the wooden door frame. I stumbled into it, clutching desperately for salvation, only to find it solid yet insurmountable. "Don't go," another voice now, mournful and pleading, echoed from a corner of my mind. It was a child's voice, fragile and breaking. It pierced through the fog of my panic and sent an icy chill down my spine. In an impulsive act of desperation, I screamed, "Who are you? Show yourself." The words erupted from me before I could think, swallowing down my own fear with a chaser of anger. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced, twisting and thrashing as if in torment, and then they took shape. Faces emerged, contorted in agony, their eyes pleading, their mouths silent. Their expressions spoke a language of despair that crashed over me in waves. I staggered back, gasping for air as the chilling realization struck me were not merely figments of my mind, but remnants of the vanished. Spirits trapped in limbo, begging for release. A terror surged deep inside me, intertwining with an aching desire to help. But as I stepped towards them, drawn by their sorrow, the figures began to flicker and waver like a flame threatening to extinguish. An unearthly growl rumbled from within the void, an assertion of dominance that struck panic into my soul. The faces twisted in fear, as if sensing a deeper horror creeping upon us. With every heartbeat, the howling from the mountains grew louder, drowning out their cries. They began to sway, thrashing against an unseen current, reaching for me with hands that were still flesh yet fading. "Help us. We are." But before they could finish, I felt a raw force surge behind me, icy and omnipotent. I turned just in time to see a towering figure emerging from the shadows, an imposing mass of darkness, limbs stretching unnaturally long, eyes glowing a sickly yellow, piercing through the night. It was as if the shadows themselves had taken form, animated by an unspeakable power. I stumbled backward, terror consuming me. "What do you want?" I screamed, desperation knifing through my veins. The creature tilted its head, almost curiously, as I felt the air compress around me, suffocating and unrelenting. And that's when it lunged. The darkness enveloped me, the last echoes of the cries fading into silence. And then, in the blink of an eye, everything shattered. I was back outside, standing at the treeline, staring into the churning mist of the mountains. The cafe was again in the distance, normal sounds of life washing over me. My heart thumped loudly in my chest, confusion swirling in my mind. Had it been real? Had I truly seen what I thought I saw? But as I turned back towards the woods, a cold realization gripped me. Embedded in the dirt, partially buried, was something metallic, a locket. I knelt down, retrieving it, the engraving flickering in the remaining light. A child's face, framing a set of eyes that seemed too familiar to be mere coincidence. That's when I heard a whisper right behind me, soft and chilling, "You shouldn't have come here." Before I could comprehend, the mountains roared with an unsettling laughter, an ominous threat echoing in the shadows. The ground trembled beneath me, and as I looked up, the treeline split apart, widening the passage towards something I was not ready to face. I had opened a door I couldn't close. The mist coiled around me like a serpent, constricting with every breath I took. My heart raced as I clutched the locket, The child's face burned into my mind. Anxiety gnawed at my insides, twisting my stomach into knots. I understood now this was a warning, an omen of things to come. I had stumbled into a realm where the veil between life and death hung by a thread. A low growl echoed through the trees, heavy and vibrating against my chest. I peered into the encroaching darkness, bracing myself against the tree trunk as a familiar figure floated back into my vision, the shadowy outline of the first spectral being I had encountered. My mind screamed for me to run, to flee this haunting landscape, but a gnawing obligation tethered me to this nightmare. "Why do you linger?" the figure rasped, its voice laced with sorrow and urgency. "They will come who will come," I asked, uncertainty drenching my words. Fear trapped me in place, yet something deep within me burned with the desire for answers. "Not all who wander return. The mountains demand a toll," the apparition whispered, its eyes dissolving into the darkness, a chilling reminder of the child's eyes I had seen in the locket. Just then, another wretched howl tore through the night, reverberating in a savage cadence that pierced my resolve. Suddenly, I was hit with a flood of memories, fragments of past lives erupting in vivid colors, people laughing, children playing, all washed away like footprints on a beach. Panic surged through me as I realized the truth. The mountains were insatiable, feeding off souls, devouring their essence. It was a parasitic entity transformed into an unholy ground of grief that my feet instinctively moved toward the source of the howl, drawn by an invisible string, as dread coated my skin like a second layer. I couldn't turn away. The pull was far greater than my fear. The wind howled a symphony of calls from the depths, urging me deeper into the maw of darkness. What lay ahead erupted from the eerie silence, a clearing illuminated only by a ghostly light. In its center, a jagged rock formation loomed like a toothy maw, glistening with stagnant shadows. It was there that I saw them, faces twisted in eternal torment, trapped in the snare of the cursed earth. The figures of those who had vanished became tangible once more, bound to the mountains with despair. "Help us," they chorused, their voices merging into a haunting melody that begged for release. I felt the weight of their anguish bearing down on my spirit, crushing me from all sides. I wanted to scream, to tear through the fabric of their torment, but my voice was lost among their torment. The shadows contorted and coalesced around me, their sadness palpable. I could see their hands reaching out for me, pulling at my heartstrings, weaving a deceptive tapestry of hope. But before I could respond, the earth trembled beneath us in a deafening roar, and a fissure split the ground wide open. A dark abyss gaping hungrily, the towering silhouette emerged from the depths of that gaping void, writhed from the very essence of despair and torment. Its eyes shone like twin flames, fierce and predatory, searching for its next victim. The growl morphed into a manic laughter, echoing through the clearing, chilling my blood with every note. "You've come to play?" it boomed, the voice cold and malevolent. "The game has just begun." In a flash of instinct, I backed away, but the ground trembled, swirling around me as tendrils of darkness lashed out, wrapping around my legs like coiling serpents. Clawing through the murky air, I grasped the locket, the child's face burning into my psyche anew, urging me to fight. I knew if I succumbed to this hellish nightmare, my fate would be sealed among the wailing souls. "Release us!" they all cried in unison, their faces merging with the darkness, gasping for liberation that felt impossibly out of reach. I turned to them, yearning for some guidance, but all I saw were tortured visages, caught in a cycle they could never escape. "You must become part of it," the darkness urged, wrapping tighter, its voice now velvet sharp against my skin, teasing my resolve. "Or let go and become their savior." The abyss yawned wider. Unseen hands gripped my heart with relentless despair, dragging me closer to the edge. I caught sight of the children's faces in the locket, their eyes wide with longing and fear, reflecting a truth I could not yet comprehend. The darkness roared in displeasure. "Your choice now." The ground split, and I felt myself tipping into the maw, the terrifying void ready to swallow me whole. My heart raced as I fought against the fetters of despair, knowing I had but an instant to make a decision that would echo through time itself. But just as everything slipped away, I heard one last whisper, desperate and unwavering. You must remember you are not alone." And then I fell, consumed by shadows, the laughter echoing louder, drawing me toward an unfathomable fate, a destiny entwined with the mountains that would haunt me forever. The weight of the abyss surrounded me, a suffocating blanket of darkness pressing against my skin as I fell. Twisting and turning in the pitch black, I half expected the void to swallow me whole, but instead, a sudden jolt stole my breath. I landed heavily on a cold, uneven surface, the impact sending shockwaves of pain through my body. Groaning, I rolled onto my back, feeling the damp earth cling to my skin, slick with something unnameable. The laughter from the figure above faded like echoes in an empty chamber, leaving behind a deafening silence. Panic surged anew as I scrambled up, desperate to find my bearings. Here, in this subterranean world, shadows darted just beyond the periphery of my vision, flickering like dying flames. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling and thin against the oppressive silence. The absence of a response sent tremors down my spine. I strained my ears, half expecting the chorus of souls, or perhaps another monstrous taunt, but all I heard was the echo of my own fear. Slowly, I stumbled forward, the ground shifting beneath my feet with every step. It felt alive, pulsating as if aware of my presence, and every inch I tread increased the suffocating anxiety clinging to me. The darkness was thick, wrapping around me, suffocating any semblance of sanity, and as I moved deeper into its embrace, the shadows swirled, molding themselves into figures that haunted my periphery in distinct shapes, whispering my name. They called me with a cacophony of anguish, their voices overlapping, a chorus of loss. "Help us, find us," they echoed in mournful harmony. A chill swept through me, laden with dread as I recognized their faces, those I thought I'd left behind, faces I had seen on milk cartons or in newspapers. The vanished days. I stepped into the blinkering light ahead. A shrill yelp reverberated through the air, cutting through the oppressive gloom. My heart sputtered. I glanced around, trying to fathom the source, when a shriek erupted again, this time closer, echoing off the damp walls like a vengeful god's proclamation. "Run!" The voice shattered through the whispers, new yet achingly familiar. The tone stirred something deep within my memory, a plea draped in urgency, not the soul's calling out for help, but something more human. The realization sent adrenaline coursing through my veins. I had not yet lost all hope. Spurred by the voice, I swept forward, racing toward the light that beckoned before me. Leveling out, I broke through into an open chamber, vast and towering, aglow with a sickly luminescence that dripped from grotesque fungi clinging to the walls, transforming the space into a wretched sanctuary. But before I could even catch my breath, another figure emerged from the shadows, silhouetted against the eerie glow. Short, slight, and disheveled, the figure trembled, its eyes wide and glassy as they locked onto mine. "You shouldn't be here," it rasped, lips trembling. It was a young girl, no more than 10, her clothes tattered and her face smeared with dirt and tears. Yet somehow there was a strength about her that held me captive. "You have to leave. They're coming for you." I took a step closer, instinctively drawn to her plight. "Who's coming? What do you mean?" But before she could answer, the walls seemed to pulsate, trembling as if the very earth resented her words. A deep rumble rose through the chamber, vibrating through my bones. Shadows elongated and writhed, gathering in the corners, pooling together, spilling forth from the depths. "Forgive us," they cried, a chorus of anguished souls merging into an unbearable clamor. I staggered backward, clutching the locket tightly, feeling the twisted warmth emanating from it, a fleeting breath of hope pinned between despair and reality. "We have to go?" I urged the girl, panic igniting in my chest as more figures emerged from the darkness, grown men with ashen faces and hollow eyes, their bodies twisted in despair. "Help us. Help us find peace," they moaned, encircling us as I resisted the overwhelming pull of their sorrow. The girl clutched my wrist, urgency dancing in her wide eyes. "Dunno," she screamed, her voice rising above the chaos. "You can't listen to them. They're not what they seem." But the shadows surged forward, their wails melding into howling winds that battered against my senses. The girl's grip turned desperate. "They want you to join them. Don't be a part of it." I was torn between the echoes of the damned and the reality of the girl beside me. Heart pounding, I prepared to run, when suddenly an ear-splitting crack resonated through the air, and the very fabric of the chamber began to fracture, sending shards of darkness spilling in all directions. The ceiling crumbled, splintering as a torrent of shadows surged toward us, a ravenous hunger raveling through the air. The ground shook violently beneath my feet, and the mortal tortured cries reached a fever pitch. "Join us!" They beckoned, overlapping and hissing. But as I braced myself, ready to follow the girl's lead, I felt the chilling grasp of something unseen latch onto my ankle that I know. I yelled as I fought against the pull, but it was too late. The shadows wrapped tighter, dragging me toward the yawning darkness of a new abyss, swallowing my fear like a demon in delight. "Remember, you are not alone." The girl's voice echoed, fading into the cacophony, merging with the frantic wails as they snared me deeper into chaos. And then, with a surge that shattered my will, the terror enveloped Mimi's scream, like hers, lost to the dark. Within the suffocating embrace of the infinite void, I felt shadows inside me stir, awakening a hunger I never knew resided within. My heart pounded against my ribs, and as despair threatened to eclipse my existence, one last vision seared through the darkness, a fleeting image of the child in the locket, her eyes pleading, growing distant, leaving me with a haunting question echoing, "Am I next?" The howling darkness swallowed me whole, a frigid breath that chilled my very soul. I felt the weight of the void, the sensation of trailing fingers from 1,000 shadows brushing against my skin, their touch a sharp reminder of the horror that lurked just beyond the veil. I fought against the pull, desperation coursing through me as fragmented memories drifted in and out of reach, overshadowed by the relentless roar of the damned souls I had encountered. Suddenly, I broke through a thick mist cascading around me like a shroud, unveiling an expanse that felt both familiar and nightmarish. I staggered to my feet, disoriented but driven by the blend of fear and survival instincts. Was this the other side? Or merely another layer of torment? Glimmers of light flickered faintly in the distance, illuminating the contours of a decrepit village suspended in time. It clung to existence like the dying remnants of a fever dream, buildings leaning precariously as if the very earth underneath had given up hope. A chill went down my spine. The girl's warning bellowed in my mind, "You have to leave. They're coming for you." As I moved closer, the wails morphed into laughter, sickly and grotesque, threading through the air like serpents seeking their prey. The light grew dimmer, transforming the twisted village into a labyrinth of despair. "Help us," the air whispered, the very ground seemingly shifting beneath my feet, urging me to tread carefully. I caught sight of figures darting between the shadows, ghostly shapes, eyes glistening with an ethereal sheen. Were they souls still trapped in this desolate realm, or had they taken forms of their former selves, tainted and corrupted? My heart raced. The child had pleaded for me to escape, yet the desire to uncover the truth held me captive. "Don't be drawn in," I whispered to myself, faltering as a dining hall came into view, the long table glistening with remnants of a long-dead feast. The air smelled of decay, and the husks of forgotten celebrants stared at me with hollow eyes, their distorted expressions twisted in agony. "They want you to join them," I recalled the anti-plea echoing in the confines of my memory. I dared to step inside, compelled by an unfathomable urge to confront whatever horrors lay in waiting. The laughter crescendoed, resonating with sinister delight as I inched into the chamber. Candles flickered, casting ghastly shadows that danced upon the cracked walls, morphing into nightmarish forms. Each whisper seemed unrelenting, blending despair with malice. And then, a figure coalesced from the haze, tall, cloaked in shadow with eyes burning like embers in a dying fire. I froze, feeling every fiber of my being scream in warning. "Join us. Feast with us," it crooned, voice dripping with seduction. "You yearn for answers, don't you?" "No," I shouted, stepping back, defiant despite the adrenaline racing through me. "I want to escape." The figure's laughter rang hauntingly, harmonized with the long-forgotten souls who watched from every corner, their faces like those of ancient marionettes, jerked by unseen strings. They reached out, twisted hands beckoning toward the table, pleading, "Help us find peace." Energy surged through me, a mix of outrage and sorrow. I fought against their collective memory, pressing against the walls of their sorrow until I felt the chamber begin to tremble, the shadows around me growing denser, closing in like the claws of the damned. "What are you?" I gasped, struggling against the dark torrents that threatened to engulf me. "We are remnants of the forsaken. You wear their flesh, but you don't belong to them. Join us and discover your true self." The figure loomed closer, its scorching eyes boring into mine, unveiling snippets of a past I couldn't recall. The loss twisted within me like a wounded serpent. For every soul that knocked against my awareness, there was an emptiness that whispered, drawing me deeper into the tapestry of despair. I tore my gaze away, unwilling to succumb. A haunting realization bloomed within me. I knew these souls, these faces. They were the lost, the vanished, that had receded into the darkness, victims of something far more sinister than I was prepared to confront. And then, through the icy grip of dread, I caught a glimpse of the girl fleetingly hovering beyond the doorway, a beacon amidst the shadows. "If you discover who you truly are, you become one of us," the cloaked figure hissed, a sinister grin curling upon its gaping maw as I wrestled with the weight of decisions long forgotten. "Mia?" I screamed, pushing forward, desperation propelling me as the shadows began to swirl violently, threatening to drag me into the feast of torment once more. But as I reached the threshold, an unseen force gripped my arm, pulling me back, trapping my screams within the void. The girl's eyes blazed with urgency, but before I could decipher her plea, the chamber erupted into chaos. The walls cracked, splintering under the weight of darkness as the figures surged forth, their endless hunger manifesting in a tide of shrieks and grasping hands. "Remember who you are? You can't turn back," she shouted, but her voice was swallowed up by the growing madness around me. A wild rush of emotion overtook me, dissolving the barrier between horror and the reality that closed in on me. I felt myself teetering on the brink, disoriented, desperately clinging to the fleeting image of the girl as the shadows closed in, their wailing cries summoning me toward the depths. And just as I was yanked into the whirlpool of despair, a flash of lightning illuminated the chamber, revealing a mirror, ancient and cracked, reflecting not just my face, but shadows of the horrors that haunted me. In that surreal moment, the reflection grinned back, transformed into twisted, mocking smiles, sharper than the abyss itself, and my heart sank as I realized the chilling truth. Within me resided a darkness I had yet to understand, one that roared to be unleashed. Then darkness swept me away, leaving the chamber echoing with questions as the shadows reached toward the mirror, drawn by their own insatiable hunger. "What truth will you choose?" a voice murmured, echoing through the depths as I fell, cradled by the abyss. In the icy grip of the void, I fell down, down into darkness so thick it could be carved with a knife. I landed with a bone-rattling thud in an unending night, feeling the clutches of fear transform into a palpable force that coiled around my body, suffocating in its embrace. Anxiety pulsed through my veins, echoing the laughter that no longer seemed distant but woven into the very fabric of the air itself. Shadows surged around me, whispering my name, murmuring secrets that flared like fireflies, igniting forgotten memories, emotions long since buried. That I forced myself to my feet, aching from the unexpected descent, my senses sharpened with dread. The girl had called me Mia, but who was she really? And why did I feel as if a part of me was slipping through the cracks of my own memory, like grains of sand escaping through clenched fingers? The landscape shifted with imperceptible fluidity, reconfiguring itself into menacing shapes. The ground beneath my feet felt alive, trembling with the cadence of restless spirits seeking passage. I moved forward, each step a struggle against the tide of terror that interested itself in dragging me back. Tendrils of fog wrapped around my ankles, whispering promises of salvation, visions of light entwined with the rotting remnants of the village. "Come join us," came the seductive chorus of voices, syncopated with the clatter of dishes and shuffling feet. My stomach lurched. In every crevice, glimmers of pale eyes studied me, yes, that came to rest in expressions ranging from despair to gleeful malice. Was I to be their next feast? As I stumbled through an opening, the scene unfolded like a grotesque tapestry. Rows of shadowy figures adorned the edges, trapped echoes of the lost and tormented. They shuddered in unison, mouths agape as if forever pleading for release, and I felt their weight on my soul. Help us, free us, the sighs intertwined with the laughter, forming a cacophony of despair that clawed my insides like a rabid animal. Then, in the chaos, the figure from before emerged, its cloak shifting with the tendrils of fog, eyes shimmering with malice. You've chosen now, watch, it intoned, extending its skeletal hand towards the throng of shadows. A pulse of energy rippled through the air, and the shadows suddenly convulsed, arching toward me in collective hunger. I backed away, my heart hammering, until I collided with a surface cool and frigid. I turned, and there stood a vast spiral staircase spiraling up into the blackness. The very air crackled with electricity, and with it came an unsettling realization: the brickwork was moist, bleeding a dark ichor that trickled down as if the walls themselves were alive and mourning. Flee. A voice bailed out from within the confounding depths of my mind. The girl, Mia. I could feel her spirit entwine with mine, urging me toward the staircase. Without second-guessing, I surged forward, the shadows screeching in protest as I began my ascent. Each step echoed in the silence, bouncing back more sinister than the last. As I climbed higher, the air grew thick with a musky odor, like something primordial and decayed lingering in the dark. Above me, flickering lights sparked to life, illuminating faces that leered down, their eyes unknown, longing, yet predatory, distorted features twisting into ghoulish grins. You cannot escape, they jeered, voices layered with laughter, contempt, and sorrow. That I hit the top of the staircase and burst into a vast corridor lined with doors, each one unique yet grotesque. Some were adorned with mold and rot, while others glistened ominously with a glass-like sheen, whispering promises of darkness. Instinctively, I pressed against the first door, a familiar dread pooling deep within my stomach. What had once been nothing more than an echo of horror now vibrated in tandem with my heartbeat. Then I gasped as flashes of memories surged: a girl with striking green eyes, a beautiful laugh that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. But just then, the very corridor convulsed as the haunted souls from below surged upward, their whispers rising in urgency, screaming for their long-lost salvation. In a panic, I leaned against the door. My heart raced so quickly I feared it would shatter under the pressure. Suddenly, it creaked open, revealing a pitch-black void within. Compelled by a force I could not understand, I stepped through, the world dissolving into an ink-black haze. Then I was in an entirely new space, a twisted version of a childhood playground, eerily still, haunted by echoes of laughter that rang like silver bells amid the oppressive silence. Ghostly figures played on rusted swings, their laughter tinged with a hint of madness. And then, through the disarray, I caught a glimpse of Mia again, trapped in a swing, swinging back and forth, staring at me, her eyes pleading, shimmering like stars amidst a black abyss. Mia? I screamed, but my voice swallowed well. I will save you. I rushed forward, but the swing swung wider, moving out of reach. Suddenly, the ground beneath us trembled violently, fissures splitting like gaping maws. Laughter crescendoed menacingly, reverberating in the air as I reached out for her, yet the shadows coalesced into jagged shapes, snatching at her fragile form. The haunting strains intensified, swirling frenetically around me. No, I shouted, but it meant nothing in the chaos. Shadows gathered, creeping closer, curling around my ankles. The figures began to emerge, entangled in sinister mirth, their mouths stretched impossible wide with laughter that felt like blades slicing through the air. I fought to reach Mia. The ground splintered beneath my feet, and an unnatural chill gripped me. Just as I felt myself falling into the dark void once more, I sensed a shift in the air. The figures paused. Mia? I screamed again, but the sound was devoured by another, more profound boom. The laughter became frantic as the ground gave way, releasing a wave of darkness that surged toward both of us. And in that moment, amidst the chaos, the echoes of past lives rose around for a final claim, and I gasped as I was suddenly pulled down towards the maw of despair. Whatever awaited me in the depths was more monstrous than I could comprehend, both a release from this nightmare and the beginning of a new horror. The weight crushed my chest, and I reached out in desperation, but grasping shadows closed in around me, their laughter mingling with her scream as everything dissolved into the depths, and then it fell silent. The silence was deafening, an absence of sound that swallowed me whole. I blinked, and in the absence of light, I felt the contours of another space envelop me. It was stifling, a void replete with suffocating shadows. My breath came in ragged gasps, yet nothing seemed to echo back. It was as if the air had conspired against the very act of exhalation. I tried to call out, to scream for Mia, but my voice echoed only in the confines of my own panic. Panic turned to dread as I sensed movement in the shadows. Tentative at first, then with a baleful persistence that sent shivers spiraling down my spine. The air thickened with an electric tension that ignited the tiny hairs on my arms. Each sound tiny scuffles, whispered breaths. The rustling of fabric made from shadows seemed to pulse with a grotesque energy that whispered of impending despair. "Help us, Mia," I choked on her name, fear fracturing it like glass. And something shifted in the darkness, a congealed mass that began to take shape, layering itself over the stagnant air like a living wall, pulsating and breathing as if it were aware of my torment. "Join us," came the echo, now an intimate cackle that flooded my senses. It was all too familiar, those eyes piercing from the dark, mirroring my own desperation. Faces formed and dissolved in agony, countless souls trapping themselves in the transient shadows, their hands outstretched toward me, begging, pleading. I stumbled back, colliding with something solid yet cold. The feel of it was wrong, too wrong, and as I turned, heart racing, I was confronted with a figure draped in fabric that seemed to consume the dim light, merging seamlessly with the void. "Why did you come here?" It hissed in a voice that slithered through my skin, leaving a chill in its wake. Everything about it felt wrong. Too many limbs, too many eyes, too much hunger. I closed my eyes, but the vision burned into my retinas, refusing to fade. "That I am looking for Mia," I shouted, regret flooding my heart. How had I allowed myself to be drawn into this horror? "She's here, isn't she?" The figure's laughter echoed, a sound devoid of joy, echoing against the walls of my sanity. It twisted in place, revealing a mouth lined with rows of teeth, sharp and glistening. "Mia is part of us now." The shadows pulsed, and with them came fragments of the past. Off a girl with green eyes, laughing under the sun. One moment she was there. The next, she was fading like steam in the chilly morning air. I felt paralyzed, the cruel truth crashing over me. "You want to save her. You can't. She's already part of the void." "Didn't know," I retorted, fighting the tremor in my voice. "I won't let it take her." I felt the fire of rebellion stirring within me, igniting against the encroaching shadows. I staggered back toward the soft whispers, trying to make sense of their distorted pleas. Save us, save us." The shadows writhed and twisted, trapped souls colliding with one another, their faces morphing strangely in a grotesque portrayal of horror. A chill seeped into my bones, weighing me down. I glanced around wildly, searching for an escape, when the figures lunged forward. I felt a gnawing tug at the fabric of my being, an irresistible pull from the ghosts who recognized the quivering strands of my fear, the essence of despair flowing like a river unbounded. "Join us," they sang in a harmony that was maddeningly sweet, their bodies shifting and merging, reaching for me with desperate grip. Their hands broke through the thin veil of darkness, and I felt my own surface eroding as shadows began to claim me too. The murmurings of countless voices rolled over me, washing through my mind in waves. Then a jolt, a spark of Clarissa flash of Mia's face. I threw my entire being at the vacuum, directed toward the only shape that mattered. "Mia," I screamed, driven by raw adrenaline, fighting for her memory to anchor me against the tide. With a fierce desperation, I charged into the darkness, pushing back the weight that tried to absorb me whole. Suddenly, the ground beneath me shifted again, rippling like the surface of a disturbed lake. I plummeted into the depths as I lost all sense of up and down. The shadows surged around me, laughter ripping through the air, echoing with an ominous clarity. They began to draw back, retreating like the reluctant tide. Amidst the chaos, amongst desperate hands grasping at my limbs, I saw her, the girl in the shadows, entwined in a cascade of darkness, light flickering like a dying ember in her eyes. "Mia," I cried as I reached toward her, but just as my fingers brushed against her arm, a chilling scream erupted, her own voice reverberating through the wool-laden air, causing my heart to lurch in a visceral response. In that split second, everything came unmoored. In a terrifying shift, fear morphed into a sickening understanding. "Run!" she shrieked, the cry piercing through the haze of twisting shadows. But as I faltered, another form rushed from behind, colossal and looming, eclipsing her fragile silhouette. I turned to face the new horror. What stood before me was something born of night, a palpable darkness embodied in nightmarish proportions. Its teeth glistened like stars against an endless void, its eyes simmering with oblivion and hunger. I realized, in that instant, I had not merely entered a place of despair. I had stumbled into something beyond comprehension, something that feasted on fear. MIA's terrified gaze pinned down my resolve as the creature descended, and the very air trembled with its malicious intent. I made the only choice I had left. In despair, I sprinted away from her grasp, the shadows inhaling behind me. But amid my desperate flight, I felt a cold hand clasp around my ankle, paralyzing me in place. The darkness coiled up my body, wrenching me back from the light. Then I heard it again, a chorus of laughter rising, a sixth symphony pulling me down deeper. And as the darkness closed in, I realized I was not escaping the void was becoming me. As I sank deeper into the embrace of the shadows, something inside me snapped. My instinct to survive outweighed the suffocating dread. I kicked and writhed, the cold hand that clamped my ankle loosening its grip momentarily. It was just enough space for me to break free, to claw my way toward what felt like direction amidst the swirling black. "Mia?" I screamed, my throat raw as it tore from my chest. "Where are you?" The darkness answered not with voices, but with echoes of my own fear taunting, circling. Each word consumed by the void felt like the last shred of hope slipping through my fingers. The laughter grew louder, vibrating through my bones, clawing at my mind until it felt almost tangible that I darted through a maze with no exit, the shadows pulsating as if they had a heartbeat. Every twist and turn felt choreographed, the figures of despair closing in from all sides, their cries rising in a fervor. Save us," they urged, nearing the edge of frenzy, the spectral visions blurring together like ink bleeding on paper. Ahead, twisting vines of shadow, like the tendrils of something sentient, beckoned. They shifted and shimmered, forming grotesque faces that shifted in and out like an old film reel. The details were haunting, eyes full of unfulfilled dreams, mouths frozen in screams, shivering reminders of the lives that had danced too close to the void. I could feel them whispering my name in a voice I almost recognized. With renewed determination, I fought against the rising tide. The wicked tendrils still caressed my skin, but were not quite able to ensnare my limbs. But then, ahead of me, I glimpsed a flicker, a heartbeat coming from just beyond the swirling mass. Light. It pierced through the crushing darkness, like a promise of salvation. Without hesitating, I surged forward, propelled by MIA's face dancing in my mind, her laughter ringing like a bell of hope. It grew brighter, and my heart raced as dread turned to desperation. I sprinted towards it, chasing the glimmer against the ravenous emptiness around me. But it flickered. The light dimmed as I approached, collapsing in on itself, threatening to vanish. I stretched out my hands, wishing for the barrier of darkness to yield. It was just within reach when suddenly, a thunderous growl reverberated through the air, silencing the uncanny laughter for a moment too heavy to bear. The creature was near, stalking equations in the shadow, each fleeting sense pulling me deeper into paralysis. I stumbled on uneven ground, struggling for balance. The darkness surged, and with it came a dull wave of despair, making me dizzy. I could feel the breath of something unnatural, its rancorous, foul stench saturating the air. The sense of dread flooded my senses like icy water, wrapping around my heart, squeezing, urging me to collapse under its weight. Suddenly, from the deep shadows, I was met with the wretched sight of a figure, a girl who looked like Mia, yet something about her was twisted, corrupted. Her eyes glowed with feral intent, a sickly light emanating from the hollow pits where her soul should have thrived. She moved fluidly through the dark, faster than I could comprehend. "Help me," she rasped, her voice jarring against the cacophony of shadows swirling around her. "You have to join to save her." The hollow eyes bore into mine, inviting me to come closer, even as my insides churned with disgust. "No," I hissed under my breath, clinging to the last pieces of my sanity. "I won't be like you." Yet even as I spoke, I could feel a shudder pass through me, eerie harmony resonating through the momentum, unholy connection between our souls forged in a twisted crucible of despair. She lunged at me, and fear propelled me backward. I stumbled, falling against the ground, and the sound was almost soothing compared to the madness closing in on me. Then I heard her words echo in my mind, almost melodic. "Join us. Free yourself." That I managed to scramble to my feet, forcing myself to face her again. But now, she was not alone. Shadows slinked across the ground, creeping towards me like ravenous beasts. Each one coalesced into figures of torment, their faces half-formed, their bodies writhing in agony. The ground beneath me began to tremble. A thick rumble filled the air, vibrating through my bones. Suddenly, the shadows contorted horrifyingly, shifting and twisting, blocking any hope of escape, any chance of light. I was surrounded. The walls pressed in closer until I could feel the heartbeat of the ancient darkness echoing against my back. Then, as I braced for the inevitable, a flicker at the edge of my vision caught my eye. A glimmer, an opening. No, it was too good to be true. But the path formed, spiraling above me like a vortex into the black. In a single heartbeat, the shadows lunged. I glanced behind, and that girl, her hollow plea twisted into a terrifying grin, reached out to grasp me. And I screamed, thrashing wildly. "Run!" I screamed back, my voice shattering through the terror-laden silence that enveloped us all. I sprinted for the light, my feet pounding the earth as I charged upwards, but the darkness clawed at my heels, whispering dire warnings, old tales of folly into my ears. One last desperate plea resonating: "You will never escape." As I reached the threshold of that glimmering void, I felt the cold grip of despair shatter as something slipped away behind me, something I thought was hope. The ground quaked violently beneath me, and just as I leaped, I felt it draw me back with an insatiable hunger. And with a final, dreadful gasp, I was swallowed by the shadows, the darkness crashing over me as a scream escaped my lips, echoing into nothingness. The abyss swallowed me whole, dragging me into an even deeper void of despair. I tumbled through the black, falling endlessly into a world that felt tangible yet ephemeral, like a fever dream teetering on the edge of madness. My limbs flailed wildly against the relentless grip of darkness, but each desperate movement drained my energy, leaving me breathless. Suddenly, I landed hard on a patch of ground that felt unyielding, yet an unnatural chill wrapped around me, coaxing the fevered sweat from my brow. The air crackled with an oppressive silence, thickening like fog, drowning out the resonance of my own panicked heartbeat. I lay still, straining to listen, my senses screaming that something was lurking close by. This new nightmare was far from over. As I regained my composure, the shadows shifted in the corner of my eye, forming shapes that flickered in and out of focus. I scuttled to my feet, heart racing, breath hitching in my throat. I blinked hard, desperate to pierce the veil of darkness, but the chilling sensation of being watched grew unbearable. A delicate whisper curled around my ears, a melody laced with malice that sent tremors through my body. "Join us, please," it teased at an O. I gasped, a cry flaring from my lips, each syllable trembling as it cut through the silence. But the shadows continued their ballet of despair, twisting and writhing as if the very fabric of the darkness was alive, taunting me with unseen dangers. Ahead of me, something stirred, a figure emerging from the penetrating gloom. I squinted through the haze, catching a glimpse of a woman with long, tangled hair, her skin pale as moonlight. It was difficult to tell if she was beautiful or monstrous, the haunting aura she emitted blurring the lines. "You seek the light, don't you?" she cooed, her voice smooth yet chilling. "But you are already enshrouded in darkness." That I wanted to recoil, but a magnetic force pulled me toward her, unsettling and irresistible. "Mia," I stammered breathlessly, compelled by a desperate hope. "Is that you?" The woman laughed, but it was an empty sound, devoid of warmth as it evaporated into the vaults of the void. Such a sweet thought, but no. The shadows danced around her, swirling in chaos, and I could sense their unsettling hunger, clawing for something from me. You look for lost souls, and yet, you carry a darkness of your OW and MY insides twisted as I felt her gaze slice through my defenses. What do you want? I hissed, tearing my eyes away, clinging to the remnants of sanity as dread coiled tighter within me. Panic surged through every nerve as I fought the urge to succumb to her allured, in response. She unleashed a wild flurry of laughter, a cacophony that echoed through the crevices of my mind. What I want is irrelevant. You will soon learn that the darkness is not your enemy. It is your salvation for those who embrace it. She stepped forward, and shadows flickered at her heels, seemingly tasked with responsibilities of their own. It felt like an invitation, or perhaps a trap. I stood frozen, weighing my options. Maybe there was another glimmer of light hidden somewhere within this suffocating blackness. If sensing my hesitation, the atmosphere thickened like sliced ice. The darkness rippled, and from it emerged murmurs, ghastly echoes of those who had come before me. Names, faces, voices mingling together, their pain coiling around me, wrapping tighter, suffocating. Help us, they cried, their voices morphing into a haunting chorus, a chilling reminder of the despair that bonded us all in this dreadful place. With renewed panic, I turned away from the figure. But before I could make my escape, the darkness surged forward, coiling around my wrists like iron chains, anchoring me in place. I struggled against the binding force, twisted and turned, trying to break free, but it pulsed with a euphoric, malevolent energy. The woman's haunting voice cut through my growing fear. You cannot run from your fate. Her fingers twisted as she summoned shadows that greedily delved into the depths of my soul, yanking out my fears, my regrets, the very essence of myself. We will possess you unless you find the light. Desperation ignited within me as I took a step back, only to realize I was not moving. My legs, rooted to the unyielding ground, seemingly converged with it. Then, a burst of energy knocked the breath from my lungs. A cacophony of shrieks erupted, a nightmarish choir, as I felt every shadow connected to me, straining to capture my spirit. Instinctively, I let out a primal scream, a final rebellion against their clutches. I will not let you take me. But just as the darkness grew more insistent, the woman stepped closer, eyes gleaming with an otherworldly hunger. The cold grip of her power sapped my will, pulling me into a murky vortex of dread. A cruel smile crossed her lips as if she could sense my mind teetering on the edge of surrender. Then a flicker, brief but blinding, pulled me away from her. An image formed against the night MIA's face, pale and tear-stained, emerging from the very heart of the darkness. Find me, she whispered, her voice thin yet palpable, a haunting lifeline against the smothering void. As her image flickered, flickering like that distant promise of light, the shadows surged forth like an avalanche. No, Mia, I howled, as I felt the shadows pulling me down, the mouth of the abyss threatening to swallow me once more. And in that blinding moment of fear and despair, the woman's smile widened, her eyes gleaming with promise and peril. Embrace the darkness, it is your only way, she taunted, and I suddenly realized. The shadows were not just after me. They sought something darker, something deeper within, and it was about to awaken. I stood alone in the suffocating void, darkness wrapping around me like a second skin, squeezing the breath from my lungs. I had fought every impulse urging me to surrender to the terror, every whisper persuading me to join the wretched souls crying for liberation, but with every passing moment, as shadows crawled closer, that resolve began to crack. Mia, I screamed again, panic shredding my insides, the echoes of desperation swallowed whole by the abyss. But in the depths of that silencing storm, something strange began to unfold, an awareness stirring within me, a presence awakening from dormancy. The darkness coiled tighter, seeking turbulence in my heart, as if it could sense the buried fear, transforming into a flicker of defiance. I swayed dangerously between two realms, one pulling me to despair, another beckoning, whispering promises, invoking the darkness that resided within. Suddenly, I felt it surge out, an invading force clawing from the depths, seeking to escape me own essence. Visions of Mia flashed through my mind, her laughter like a drowning melody against the howling winds, filling me with purpose. But as I grasped that thought, a low rumble reverberated through the chasm, intertwining with the ghastly echoes of painful wails. "Help us," came the chant from every direction, pulling back toward me the specters of those who had disappeared, people who had trusted this facade of freedom, who had believed in the darkness as their savior. Their faces morphed in agony, desperate and pleading, fingers stretching toward me, blending the lines between the horror and the promise. "You must join us. Mia, you're almost one of us." "No, I will not join you," I shouted, the very act pouring defiance into every breath. But my voice barely cut through the myriad of voices threatening to envelop me. The woman in the shadows laughed lightly, but the eyes watching from the darkness grew hungrily sharper. "You cannot resist your fate. Every choice made leads you deeper into the abyss. Make peace, or be devoured." Had I truly been here before? The glowing locket slipped from my fingers, its weight a reminder of the girl I was trying to save. As it tumbled into the darkness, I felt the space twist and tremble, shadows shifting with renewed fervor. Their excitement thrummed through my veins, taunting me with the inevitably a horrified surrender to the abyss. I turned, my heart racing, seeking an exit, but every path blossomed deeper into chaos. And then I felt Ida's cold hand grabbing my wrist, the familiar sensation electrifying my blood. I ripped my arm free, but could already feel the shadows claiming my ankles, thick and viscous, their laughter melding into a monstrous symphony, drowning every shred of hope. "Where are you, Mia?" That solitary scream shattered my spirit anew. Images flooded my mind, light pushing through the trees, my laughter, everything I would summon back into being, all interwoven with Mia's face. But as I reached, desperate for something tangible, an unbearable truth clamored through the darkness. Wasn't just an external force. It was me. I stumbled back, my essence dancing between realities, pinballing off the very fears that swirled, yearning for recognition. And somehow, within that very turmoil, I realized the darkness was connected to me, a part of me. Within it echoed my own forgotten nightmares, long buried but now awakening. A flash of memory erupted. I saw myself, small and innocent, trapped in a car, the ghostly shape of the mountains looming in the distance as I called out to my sister. The warmth of laughter mixing with the fear-riddled night, it all came rushing back. I was the last person to see her. The pain surged back, me very essence splintering into shards of guilt and regret. It wasn't just Mia lost in the shadows, it was me. I had ventured into this hellish symphony searching for her, but in that despair, I had only led myself into becoming one with the torment. "Help us," they continued, those dear voices merging into a cacophony that ensnared my heart. But now I understood. The real horror lay not in losing Mia, nor in the endless shadows, but in the possibility that I had become a monster, just like the rest of them, the monster who let the darkness inside. Now trembling within, I could feel the relentless surge of despair threatening to break me once and for all. Through the bone-deep freeze of the shadows, I could still taste hope, like the fleeting fragrance of wild flowers dancing in the wind. And as the shadows rallied forward, ravenous and insatiable, I knew then the only way to save Mia and the lost souls was not to hide in the void, but to face it head-on. "That I choose to confront this," I said, tremulous yet firm, summoning all my courage. I wouldn't join their throng. I wouldn't feed their hunger. I understood my true power. It wasn't in fusing with the darkness. It was in defining it. With renewed fire, I planted my feet down, feeling the shadows slip and twist, sparking against the weight of my resolve. "No more," I warned. "You will not claim me. Release her." Everything twisted, roots shooting up from the earth, cracks splintering outward, light burst forth from within the fissures, battling against the encroaching dark. The wails of the lost began to fade, mingling with roars of confusion and chaos. Everything quaked, the shadows recoiled, their laughter falling silent against the rising tide of my determination. "I will not be taken." And just like that, the veil started to collapse. Shadows writhed and writhed, tentacles of darkness pulling back as if repelled by my fierce ferocity. I clenched my fists, a rush of warmth surging through me, igniting the corners of darkness, pushing it away, forcing clarity into the chaos. It felt like magic, like the moment before dawn breaks, light flooding in, chasing away the shadows for good. "Mia, come back," I shouted, my voice resonating through the darkness, empowering every flicker of light. "Find me." Suddenly, a rush of energy kicked back fiercely as I felt the grip of shadows lessen, the figures crystallize and each one dissolving into radiant fragments. I reached out, summoning all the memories of love, laughter, and life as echoes of Mia's cries turned to harmonies that danced on the edge of reality. And then, emerging through the splintered shadows, there she was. A radiant visage against the canopy of darkness, her eyes shining bright with warmth. "You found me," Mia exclaimed, reaching for me, her form flickering, dazzling, embodying every hope I had wrapped within my heart. "Let's go." I held out my hand, fighting against the instinct to falter slowly. This was the moment. The darkness clung desperately, but it wasn't enough to drown out our cries of reunion. Together, we pushed against the spiral. Together we clung to each other as the darkness finally shattered, revealing a harsh, blinding light. Our screams reverberated louder than the echoing despair, burning through every crevice of illusion, every figure once lost rising up like ghosts, cascading toward the light. Then, with one final heave, it all released, colors bursting forth from the shadows, illuminating a path forward. Hope billowed upward, shimmering and radiant. Consuming every remnant of darkness, we leaped toward the light, breathless as we finally broke through to peace beneath the familiar canopy of trees. Our world, the mountain behind us, no merely a spectral silhouette. But as I turned, breathing heavily, dusting off the remnants of gloom from my shoulders, a realization struck hard. For the darkness had not vanished entirely. The whispers lingered in the folds of my mind, growth stemming from an insatiable hunger, a chilling reminder you couldn't extinguish it. You could only learn to dance with it or be consumed again. And the last truth remained embroidered in the silence as I gazed into Mia's eyes. Was this only the beginning? Somewhere, hidden in the mountain shadows, the remnants of the darkness awaited, eager for their moment to rise again. "Together," I whispered, holding onto her hand tightly, feeling the pulse of hope thump against my skin. After a short pause, the echoes shifted, and from the depths came a chilling voice, a sinister whisper that coiled around me like a noose. "The game has only just begun." In the quiet aftermath, a haunting laughter echoed through the trees, a reminder that shadows were always lurking. I shivered against the unshakable truth: the monster inside was reborn, and I wasn't so sure I could ever truly escape the darkness.